My name is Amoka, and I was born in Umukoro, a small village nestled between dusty hills and rustling farmlands in the southeastern part of Nigeria. My story is not one I tell often, but if you're watching this, then perhaps it's time it was told. I was the second daughter of Papa Nedi, a proud but troubled man who worked as a palm wine tapper and part-time farmer. My mother, Ngozi, had died giving birth to my younger brother when I was just 9. Since then, I'd helped raise my siblings and run the house, all while attending the village school under the scorching sun and the biting harmattan wind. Papa, after Mama died, changed. He drank more. He laughed less. And he started gambling. At first, it was small bets with the men at the palm wine shed, wagers over who could climb the tallest tree or carry the heaviest keg. But as debt piled and desperation set in, the stakes grew. He borrowed money from Alhaji Musa, a loan shark from the next village, with promises of paying back after the harvest. But the harvest failed 2 years in a row. By the time I turned 16, Papa owed more than he could ever hope to repay. I remember the day like it was yesterday. It was a Saturday morning, and the sun had just begun to rise. The air smelled of roasted yam and early morning dew. Papa called me into the parlor with that serious look he wore when he was either about to beat someone or confess a sin. "Amoka," he began, not meeting my eyes, "I have found your husband." I laughed at first. Me? But I haven't even finished SS2. He didn't smile. "His name is Obina. He lives at the edge of the village." I knew of Obina. Everyone did. He was the quiet, brooding man who lived in a mud house that leaned like an old man with a bad back. He worked odd jobs, mending roofs, fetching water, farming on land that wasn't his. He was poor, yes, but he was never cruel. My stomach tightened. "Papa, no." He raised his voice, which he rarely did. "You will marry him next week." That night, I sat by the mango tree in front of our house, tears slipping silently down my cheeks. My older sister, Adiz, had run away to the city 2 years before when they tried the same thing with her. I thought about following her, but I had nowhere to go, no money, and a little brother who still looked up to me like I hung the stars. And so, the following week, in a rushed and quiet ceremony, I became Obina's wife. His house was barely a home, one room, a broken bench, and a mat on the floor. But he cleaned it the day I arrived. He even fixed the thatch roof. Obina was kind, though he didn't know how to show it. He never touched me without asking, never raised his voice. But he also didn't speak much. We were two strangers tied by fate, bound by my father's debt. The first few months were hard. I cried every night. I missed school. I missed my friends. I missed dreaming. My former classmates would pass by on their way to school, their laughter echoing like ghosts. I would hide behind the banana tree so they wouldn't see me. But life didn't stop. One morning, I followed Obina to the stream. I washed, he fetched. Then we went to the farm. I learned to plant cassava, to harvest maize, to carry firewood on my head without stumbling. I learned to live. And slowly, things began to change. Obina sold enough harvest to buy a goat. Then too, I started making akra and selling it at the morning market. People began to notice me not just as the girl who married the poor man, but as Amoka the akra seller. We saved money in a Milo tin under the bed. One day, a woman named Madam Chika, who ran an adult literacy center, stopped by. She had heard about the Akara girl with the soft voice, and invited me to evening classes. Obina encouraged me to go. That was the first time he smiled at me, really smiled, and I saw the man behind the silence, but life in that house, surprisingly, was calm. He worked, he provided, and slowly, without saying much, he earned my respect. I started to help him on the farm, while still selling akra in the village. We made small money, saved every kobo. Obina watched me closely, though I didn't know it at the time. He saw how I swept the compound before sunrise, how I helped the neighbors' children with their homework, how I stitched my own wrappers when they tore. He never stopped me from going to the evening literacy classes Madam Chika started. He even bought me my first exercise book. Years passed. I had our first child, Kamsi, then Chidi. By the time I turned 25, we had bought a small generator, replaced the leaking roof, and were planning to expand the farm. The years passed. I never went back to my father's house. Not even when I heard he had fallen sick. Not even when they said he died quietly in his sleep. I forgave him, but I did not forget. By 23, I had written my WAEC exams. By 25, I had opened a small restaurant in the village with Obina's help. We had 2 children, Kamsi and Chidi. And though life was never easy, it became ours. Obina never said he loved me, not in words. But every morning, he boiled water for my bath before I woke. Every evening, he waited by the roadside to walk me home. And when I received my certificate from the local polytechnic at 31, he stood in the front row, clapping like his life depended on it. Some nights, I sit by that same mango tree outside our house and think about the girl I used to be, scared, angry, betrayed. But I also remember that she endured. She bent, but she didn't break. One evening, just as the sun dipped low and cast a golden hue over our compound, Obina came home and did something he had never done before. He knelt before me. I was shelling groundnuts with Chidi in my lap when I saw him kneel. "Obi, what are you doing?" "I have something to tell you," he said, voice trembling. I stood, worried. "What is it? What happened?" He looked up at me with tear-filled eyes. "I'm not who you think I am." He told me everything that night. Years before he met me, Obina had worked in Lagos as a welder and then ran a successful construction business. He made money, more than most in our village could imagine, but after losing his younger brother to gang violence and his mother to a stroke in the same year, he left the city behind. The money stayed in a dormant account, untouched. He returned to Umukoro, built a new life in silence, choosing simplicity over show. "Why me?" I asked, trembling, confused, overwhelmed. "Because," he said, "I wanted someone who would love me for me, not what I have. I've seen what money does to people. You, Amoka, you are the first person I've seen who can build something out of nothing, who can smile through hardship, who gives even when she's empty." I cried that night harder than I ever had before, not out of pain, but disbelief. The next morning, he took me to the city. We packed our few belongings. I only had 2 dresses and Obina had a shirt and a pair of trousers. We left for the city. We boarded an old bus from the village to the city. The journey was long and the roads were bad, so we arrived in the evening. I was shocked with the way everywhere and everyone was busy walking and the noises from the cars and bus. Everyone was in a hurry and the place looked different. We entered a small kiki that Obina paid for, and on getting to the house I was shocked with what I saw. I knelt down feeling amazed and surprised. For the first time, I saw what he had hidden, a house in Ikeja, which was so beautiful and full of luxuries, several plots of land, a dormant business account with enough to retire comfortably. He introduced me to a lawyer who helped us register our Akara brand and expand it into a proper eatery. Within a year, we had 2 locations in town. We named it Amoka's Flame. After Obine told me the truth about his hidden wealth, life began to unfold in ways I had only seen in dreams, and even those dreams never stretched this far. The first time he took me to Lagos, I didn't even recognize the man walking beside me. He wore a navy blue kaftan, freshly tailored, with polished black shoes and a wristwatch that glinted like something out of a magazine. Gone was the dusty wrapper and rubber slippers I had known for years. And then there was me, still in my market sandals, trying not to shrink beside him. But he turned to me, smiling that calm smile of his, and said, "You belong here too, Amoka. You always have." That weekend, he took me shopping for the first time. Not in the village market, but in an air-conditioned boutique in Ikeja. I had never worn designer anything in my life. The salesgirls looked at me with curious eyes at first, but when Obinna said, "She's the one, dress her like a queen," they started bringing out dresses like they were dressing royalty. He bought me a red gown, silky, smooth, and flowing like water. A gold necklace that kissed the top of my collarbone. Then a wristwatch to match his. I stared at my reflection in the mirror and barely recognized myself. I wasn't just Amoka the Akara seller anymore. I was Obinna's wife. And now, I saw what that meant. He bought me 2 cars, not just one. A silver Toyota Corolla for my personal use, and a small delivery van for Amoka's flame business. "No more trekking to the market with bags on your head," he joked. But he didn't stop there. Obinna took me on my first plane ride, to Calabar, then to Ghana. We walked on beaches holding hands, laughing like teenagers. I wore sundresses and big sunglasses. We danced to high-life music at beach bars, ate grilled fish on wooden tables, and I took pictures that I printed and framed back home. For our 5th anniversary, he surprised me with a trip to Dubai. I remember walking through the mall in Dubai Marina with my jaw practically on the floor. Gold everywhere. Bright lights. People from all over the world. And me, a girl from dusty Umukoro village, taking it all in. He let me pick out whatever I wanted: earrings, perfumes, a bag I still haven't found the heart to use because it's too fine. He said, "It's not to change you, it's to celebrate you. You deserve softness too." And through it all, Obinna never changed. He still cooked for me on Sunday mornings. Still massaged my feet when I came back tired. Still listened to my dreams with the same quiet encouragement. The money never turned his head, but it gave us the freedom to love openly, softly, joyfully. I started mentoring young women in the village and nearby towns, teaching them how to turn their small hustles into something more. Obinna funded a scholarship program under my name, something I never asked for but cried over when I saw the certificate. And every now and then, he would take my hand, lean in, and whisper, "See why I chose you?" And I'd smile, because I finally understood, it wasn't about the money, the cars, or the travels. It was about us. What we built. What we overcame. From the mud house at the edge of the village. To the high rises of the city. To the stars we never thought we could touch. Obinna never changed, even with wealth. He still helped me sweep the compound, still waited outside my classes like a schoolboy waiting for his crush. As for me, I returned to Umukoro not as the girl married off for a debt, but as the woman who rose. I built a small library in the village. I paid for 3 girls' school fees each year. And I told every young girl who cared to listen, your story does not end where it begins. I still sit by that mango tree sometimes, the one outside our now modern house. I hold Kamsi on my lap and tell her the truth, not just the pain, but the grace that followed. The way life bends, surprises, and sometimes blesses when you least expect it. My name is Amoka Obinna. And once upon a time, I was the girl traded for a debt. Now, I ride in my own car, wear my own crown, and kiss the man who saw the queen in me before I even saw her in myself. And I was once the girl no one wanted. Now I am the woman who owns her name. The end.